Welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today's episode is my installment of Cobra Convergence 7. Cobra Convergence is a G.I. Joe fan community event held every July. The plan is to paint the internet blue, Cobra blue, with posts about Cobra. For more information about the presenters and the whole event, check out hcc788.com for more details. The theme for Cobra Convergence 7 is spies, infiltrators, and double agents, so I picked Agent Faces. Oh, it's the Pegwarmers hotline. Hey, it's Hooded Cobra Commander 788.
He's not a Cobra.
Agent Faces is wearing a Cobra logo.
That's because he's a G.I. Joe infiltrator.
Sorry. So Agent Faces was released in 2003 as part of the Spy Troops line. This was during the New Sculpt era of G.I. Joe. His version 1 figure was a New Sculpt figure, while his version 2 figure, which was a mail-away, used the O-ring design. The file name given for Agent Faces on his file card, aka his real name, is Michelino Palladino, I hope I pronounced that right, which was actually a Hasbro employee back in the early 2000s. It was common in the 80s and also in the early 2000s to sculpt characters to look like Hasbro employees or to name characters after them on their file cards. Oh, the hotline again!
Hey guys!
It's Pixel Dan!
Kev, why didn't you do Ninja Force Zartan? He's the Neon Master of Disguise, and he's a ninja!
Well, Agent Face's original figure came in a 2-pack with the Zartan figure.
Neon Master of Disguise. Ninja. Mohawk.
Sorry? Agent Face's version 1 figure was a pretty casual looking action figure wearing just kind of civilian clothes, although maybe not as casual as Chuckles. He came with 2 different weapons, a duffel bag, and 2 different masks to disguise him as Cobra characters. He came in a 2-pack with Zartan, and I happen to have the little card piece here from that 2-pack, and Zartan came with a similar set of equipment, giving him some masks to disguise him as G.I. Joe guys. Agent Face's version 2 was a mail-away figure during the New Sculpt era, but he was an O-ring figure, which I thought at the time was odd marketing. Agent Faces is mostly the Crimson Guard from 1985. Underneath his helmet, he has a Duke head from 1992. It's not listed on Yojo.com, but his upper arms are also from Duke from 1992, and his forearms are Shockwave from 1992. I don't know what happened to the mold for the original arms to the Crimson Guard. For accessories, he comes with a shotgun and a Crimson Guard helmet that's molded to look like the original head of the Crimson Guard figure, but it's very bulbous and oversized because it has to fit over an actual action figure's head. When Hasbro created the new Crimson Guard with a removable helmet, they had big plans for this figure after Agent Faces. They released 2 versions of the Crimson Guard Force multi-pack. This contained some characters and 4 Crimson Guards with removable helmets. One pack had Zaymont, the other pack had Tomax, and you got 2 Fireflies for some reason. Operation Crimson Sabotage was a vehicle multi-pack that came with 3 of this style of Crimson Guards. I never got my hands on that Crimson Sabotage set. It's pretty cool though. Hasbro also released a 6-pack of Crimson Shadow Guards who wore black uniforms. In addition to all of that, kind of in the vein of Agent Faces, Hasbro had plans for an additional G.I. Joe Infiltrate Cobra Island team that was planned to use this body with the head of Gung-Ho, Duke, and Snake Eyes being revealed under the 3 figures' helmets. This set would have been an exclusive to some of the smaller retailers, but unfortunately, it was canceled. Wow, I really need to silence this thing before I start filming. Hey, it's Justin and Penelope from Farpoint Toys.
Kev, how did you end up reviewing Agent Faces?
I couldn't help it. It just popped in there.
What popped in there?
The Cobra Army Builder, who was in disguise.
But he's a Joe in disguise.
You could have picked the Baroness.
Sorry? Cobra Convergence is all about collaboration, and I have to give a shout out to Philip Donnelly, who helped me out with some of the information for this next section of the video. He used the Wayback Machine to dig up the old Spy Troops website for me, because I could not find the redemption form anywhere for the mail-away Agent Faces figure. In 2003, Agent Faces would cost you 12 battle points from specially marked products. The FAQ online did say they would take flag points. You also needed a check for $2.99 for shipping and handling for your free action figure. The offer expired on March 31st, 2004, so sorry guys, hang on to your flag points. You can't still mail away for one. As with many of these promotions, there was a limit of 2 figures per household, so I had 2 sent to my college dorm and 2 sent to my parents' house because I needed some cheap army builders.
Kevin! Hey, Kevin!
Chris? From Comic Tropes?
Hey, the theme for Cobra Convergence 7 is espionage, and you're not going to review Firefly?
Yeah.
Is Agent Faces even a real Cobra?
Sorry?
Okay, bye-bye!
Man, everybody's got a different idea who I should have reviewed for this episode. G.I. Joe vs. Cobra and all of the sublines within that new sculpt era, like Venom vs. Valor and Spy Troops, introduced a lot of new characters to the G.I. Joe lore. Many of them were positive additions to the G.I. Joe brand, but at this point, a lot of them are forgotten. Barrel Roll, Bomb Strike, Agent Faces, High Tech. Do you see any of them listed on anybody's want list for classifieds? Agent Faces was introduced in the 3D animated G.I. Joe Spy Troops movie. He was literally introduced by Duke in a briefing to the rest of the Joe team dressed up as a Crimson Guard, as Duke explained that he's currently infiltrating Cobra Mountain. His intel to the Joe team was critical to their success later in the movie, after Shipwreck impersonated Cobra Commander. It was a goofy movie. Agent Faces also helped Shipwreck escape capture. As far as personality goes, Agent Faces was pretty generic.
I'm Agent Faces. I'm a Joe like you. You're who?
Just a guy in a wacky military unit. Aside from Beachhead being a surfer dude in Spy Troops, most of the Joes were pretty generic. While the Cobras were all kind of like amped up versions of their Sunbow animated selves. So all that being said, let's take a closer look at the figure. You can see here with the helmet on, he looks pretty much like a Crimson Guardsman. Let's pull in that original Crimson Guardsman so we can really see the look together. So he obviously gets a much more bulbous helmet. You know, almost any time they do a removable helmet with action figures, the helmet ends up being oversized. Probably the next biggest detail you notice is his chest symbol is a different color, as well as his braids on his uniform there, the ceremonial cords. They really stand out as being different. And then, of course, his wrists. They did stick with that little silver detail on the sleeve, but it shifted down. I don't know what the real story is there, but I assume part of this mold got lost. I don't know if Crimson Guard forearms are used for anybody else. That would explain possibly them getting lost. But for the most part, the rest of him looks pretty similar. Again, there is some color differences with like the stripe on his pants being black instead of silver. They definitely changed a few things, but overall, he makes for a pretty good looking Crimson Guardsman. You can remove his helmet, and of course there we get to see Agent Faces out of his disguise, which is that Duke head. It's interesting they made the paint mask just kind of wavy there instead of matching Duke's straight across crew cut. And of course the facial hair there is just kind of painted on. This is possibly the first time we've seen this Duke head with the white eyes with the pupils, which was a sort of a different style of paint in the early 2000s than during the 90s. Although this head may have been used for a Duke already in the line. I can't remember when that happened, but there were a couple of uses of this head and the whole body from that Duke in this line. Overall, he's a real nice looking figure. I mean, I was very excited when he came out at the prospect of being able to army build some Crimson Guards. Of course, they're all a little bit different. He doesn't exactly match the other Crimson Guards, but really probably only had 1 or 2 Crimson Guards back then. There you can see a nice close-up of his shotgun, this again being a weapon that had come with other figures, and then there's that helmet. But all this stuff goes on him pretty nicely to give you sort of a full figure feel. It's not the original gun, it's not the original helmet, all the original colors. There's no backpack, but still, I think this was a really fun figure to be able to get back in the day, and I'm glad that they released him. I also have quite a few other Crimson Guards with a similar paint scheme. You can see they used the Star Brigade Cobra Commander head underneath the helmets for many of those, with black and reddish hair. Are all the ones I have. There are some other releases from different sets that happened over the years, but these guys all match up pretty well with Agent Faces, making it a little bit easier to army build. So all that history about the character and the figure and the various releases being said, what are my overall thoughts here? I think it was really cool that they introduced a new figure as a mail away and also promoted him in an animated cartoon. It's not quite the same level of promotion Sergeant Slaughter had, but it's much more effort than like Super Trooper or the Fridge had. Those guys only were in a commercial to get the toy, whereas this character had screen time and like a purpose on the team in the animated feature itself. And, you know, that's where I feel like it's a little bit more like Sergeant Slaughter. Obviously, Slaughter had the fact that he was a real person and was used in commercials and the show and the movie. Like, I'm not putting them on the same level, but I feel like this was a bigger attempt to promote a new character, and I think it was a really fun way to kind of offer this guy as a free figure. Could they have made him Chuckles? Yeah, I think they could have. G.I. Joe already had an infiltrator, an undercover guy. But they didn't seem to have a lot of confidence in that figure for many years. They were going to do another Chuckles, and then they changed it to Mace for DEF, but he ended up being just released under Battle Corps. And then again, in this era, we got Agent Faces, a new character to be undercover. In more recent years, now that the fans that grew up with the figures are adults, and they've done a few things kind of with the Chuckles character to make him a little more popular, like having him be kind of a really awesome character in an arc of the IDW comics, people like Chuckles. In fact, he's going to be a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive figure. I just wonder if the brand managers didn't have confidence in the character of Chuckles, so they decided to create a new character to promote with Spy Troops. Since they used the head of 1992 Duke and just sort of painted on some facial hair there, he always kind of makes me think of Duke's evil twin. His version 1 figure that was released in the new sculpt had all new parts, so he just seems a little bit more like his own character. Before we knew that there would be so many releases of this Crimson Guard body, I was just so excited to get a few more army builders, even if they weren't going to blend in 100% perfect with that original figure. The early 2000s was a really great time to be a G.I. Joe fan and army builder, because we got lots of multi-packs of Bats and Vipers and Crimson Guards and even Cobra Blue Shirt Troopers. I know the new sculpt era is often overlooked, and even many of those figures are not my favorites, but I was excited to be getting new figures and new G.I. Joe media, like Spy Troops and Venom vs. Valor. And the highlights for me were always when we got O-Ring figures peppered into that line. There were a lot of O-Ring army builders released in 2-packs and in multi-packs, and that was my favorite part of collecting in this era of G.I. Joe. Thanks to Hooded Cobra Commander 788 for all the work he puts into orchestrating Cobra Convergence. It's a really awesome event. I love seeing all of the G.I. Joe community come together and the spirit of the event promoting collaboration and promotion of each other's channels and material and just really, bringing the small group of us that are G.I. Joe fans even closer. Some of my favorite things that have come out of being involved with YouTube happened to be connected to, people that I've gotten to collaborate with, and this event definitely encourages that. With that being said, I want to thank Hoodie, Pixel Dan, Justin and Penelope from Farpoint Toys, and Chris from Comic Tropes for their little cameo pieces. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing them pop into the episode to make fun of me picking a Joe for Cobra Convergence. I mean, come on. He looks like a Cobra. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, maybe even share this video with a toy collecting friend. If you want to support the channel even further, join our Pegwarmers Patreon. Thanks for hanging on the peg with me, Cobra!